Hey everybody, welcome to day 5 of the 60-day novel writing challenge, where we are going to be talking about plot and conflict. If you haven't hit that subscribe button below, hit it now. And whatever it is you're drinking today, for me I'm drinking some decaf coffee because sometimes you just need decaf. Go ahead and grab a cup, cozy up, and let's get to writing. Alright, so the goal of today is that we are going to come up with our conflict and our plot, which are two words that I use pretty much almost interchangeably. And we are going to be able to, by the end of today, answer the dreaded question of what is your book about? So we're going to examine the backs of 3 different books in different genres to see how it is that they explain to their readers what their book is about. We're going to break that down into the smaller elements so we can understand it, and then we're going to recreate that with our own books. Now, before we examine the backs of these books, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you up front what the 3 elements are that go into making a good description. So the first one is world building. So in every single description on the back of the book, it's going to build a little bit of what the world looks like so you have at least a little bit of context. The second, also something we've worked on, is the character. They're going to tell you a little bit about the character, give you just enough of a taste of a snippet of them that you'll want to read more about them. And then the third thing is the conflict. And since I seem to really like the number 3 today, we're going to break the elements of the plot and the conflict into 3 parts as well. So the first is going to be that every plot, every conflict has to have some sort of a goal, something that the character is working to overcome or working to achieve. There has to be a direction that they are moving in. So the second of the 3 elements is that there have to be stakes involved. So maybe it's the fate of the world at stake, or it could be the fate of your character's love life at stake. Are they going to fall in love? Are they going to have the relationship of their dreams? So that's number 2. Number 3 is going to be the obstacles that are in their way. And something to know is that stakes are never as important as obstacles. And I know that sounds a little counterintuitive because you would think that high stakes make your reader more excited about the story, but it's actually bigger obstacles that make the reader excited. Let me give you an example of what I mean by this. So if the high stakes are the cure for cancer is down the road, but for your character to get it, all they have to do is walk down the road and jump over 2 mud puddles, and their neighbor's gonna hand them the cure for cancer. All right, that was high stakes because the cure for cancer is a big deal, but low obstacles. Whereas if in scenario 2, your character is trying to find the cure for a rolled ankle. So, the stakes are really not that high because all it is the cure for a rolled ankle. But if your character has to go into the dark and scary woods, into the haunted house, over a pit of snakes, and sacrifice their best friend in order to get this cure, that is a much better story in the end than the first one. So what I'm trying to illustrate with this is that the stakes are not as important as the obstacles, but it is the combination of the stakes, the obstacles, and that goal that your character needs to achieve. That is what creates your conflict. So I've got 3 books for you here. Well, actually I pulled 4 off. I've been debating which ones to read to you guys, but I am gonna start off with 6 of Crows. We're gonna read the synopsis of this and then break it down into these 3 points that we talked about. That when somebody asks what your book is about, you answer with a little bit of the character, a little bit of the world, and a lot of the conflict. So I'm gonna read this to you and we're gonna break that down. All right, and just so you know, the genre on this one is fantasy, if you could not tell from the front cover. So, Ketterdam. A bustling hub of international trade where anything can be had for the right price, and no one knows that better than criminal prodigy Kaz Brecker. Kaz is offered a chance at a deadly heist that could make him rich beyond his wildest dreams, but he can't pull it off alone. A convict with a thirst for revenge, a sharpshooter who can't walk away from a wager, a runaway with a privileged past, a spy known as the Wraith, a heartrender using her magic to survive the slums, a thief with a gift for unlikely escapes. Kaz's crew are the only ones who might stand between the world and destruction if they don't kill each other first. All right, so let's break this down into the 3 elements. We have a little bit of character. We know that Kaz Brecker is the main character and that he is, how does it describe him? A criminal prodigy. We also learn a little bit about the other characters. We've got the convict, the sharpshooter, the runaway. And then we've got the world. So we know Ketterdam is a bustling hub of international trade where anything can be had for the right price. So it gives you a little bit of a shady feel about it too. And then we've got the conflict as well. And of course, we've talked about breaking the conflict into 3 parts too. So the first part is there's something to achieve, something to overcome. And this actually mentions 2 of them. One is that there's this heist that can make him rich beyond his wildest dreams. That's one big one. But it also mentions that they might be standing between the world and destruction. So it sounds like actually there's 2 really big conflicts and 2 goals that need to be overcome in this. The stakes, it's already mentioned, are the world itself, and then the obstacles in the way sounds like Kaz's crew can't get along to save their lives. So are they possibly gonna kill each other before any of this can be accomplished? So those are the elements that have been broken down in Six of Crows. Also, this is an amazing book if you guys want to read it. So that is our fantasy breakdown. I grabbed this one off the shelf for our next one up, which is a thriller. So no magic involved. This takes place in real life Earth. Of course it is fiction though. So Tracy Crosswhite has spent 20 years questioning the facts surrounding her sister Sarah's disappearance and the murder trial that followed. She doesn't believe that Edmund House, a convicted rapist and the man condemned for Sarah's murder, is the guilty party. Motivated by the opportunity to obtain real justice, Tracy became a homicide detective with the Seattle PD and dedicated her life to tracking down killers. When Sarah's remains are finally discovered near their hometown in the northern Cascade Mountains of Washington State, Tracy is determined to get the answers she's been seeking. As she searches for the real killer, she unearths dark, long-kept secrets that will forever change her relationship to the past and open the door to deadly danger. All right. So this one breaks down in the same way. We get a little bit about the character. Her name's Tracy Crosswhite, and she has dedicated her life to tracking down killers because of her backstory, because she lost her sister to one. We've got a little bit about the world. We know that this is taking place in Seattle, and also with her being a police officer, this is probably going to have a lot going on in Seattle PD. And then the conflict is that the guy who was convicted is probably not the right guy. So the stakes in this are not explicitly spelled out. They're more implied that if he's not caught, he's probably going to kill again. But the obstacle is that nobody knows who it is. So she's going to have to be the one who finds him and figures out who it is who killed her sister. So this has all of the elements, the character, the world, the conflict, and it does a really good job of drawing you in and making you want to read the book. And for the 3rd book, I did pick up a romance. So if you are a romance writer, I do have one that we're going to dissect here real quick as well. And this is called Twice Loved, and this is actually required reading to be a woman in my family. You have to read Twice Loved, fun fact. So I'll read to the back of this here. 5 long years ago, Laura Dalton stood on the bleak Nantucket shore waiting for her beloved husband Rye to return. Then she learned his ship was lost at sea. Eventually, Laura's lonely heart found solace with Dan, Rye's closest friend. Dan was a beacon of light in her time of darkness, becoming a father to the child Rye never knew, and giving Laura a reason to live again. Who could foretell that the wind-roughened sailor with sun-bleached hair would come back into their lives, that Laura's heart could betray her soul, that Rye would come home again? All right, so to break this down, we know a little bit about the character. We know that Laura is searching for love, and we know that she found it with her first husband, Rye, but then, of course, her heart was broken when he was lost at sea. We know a little bit about the world because we have this phrase that paints it as the bleak Nantucket shore, which really gives you already a good idea of where they're going to be at. And then you want to talk about a problem. This woman has remarried and her love of her life has come back from the dead. So if that is a big problem. The stakes are going to be, will she find true love or will she miss out on her soulmate? And then the obstacles in the way are that she's got to pick between the old love of her life and the new love of her life. Now, writing the blurb on the back of the book may seem like it's not that hard just because it's short. It's nowhere near as long as the book that we're writing, but it is actually very difficult and takes a lot of time and a lot of rewriting. So if you don't get this right on the first try, don't worry about it. But before you start trying to write your blurb, which of course is going to include a little bit about the characters, a little bit about the world, and a lot about the conflict, I want to tell you about what doesn't count as conflict. So if somebody asks you, what is your story about? You can't say it's about a girl and a horse. That's not a story. That is 2 nouns that you just put into a sentence. And you can't just embellish it. You can't just go on to say, oh, it's about a girl and her horse who grew up between this year and this year out in the desert. That is closer. we've now got a little bit about the character and a little bit about the world, but you're still missing the plot. You're still missing the conflict. There has to be something that they are working towards. So to make that a story and to make it a complete blurb, it would have to be the girl and her horse have grown up between this year and this year out in the deserts with the goal that they wanted to win the state rodeo. But the problem is the only place they could train was in the sand where the rattlesnakes were. That would be a complete story. I don't know if I'm really the person to write that story, but it would be a complete blurb because it has a little about the character, a little bit about the world, and a lot about the conflict. So if you haven't already guessed, the homework for today is to write the blurb that would go on the back of your book. So don't worry about spoiling anything because this is just for you, but really try to figure out what your plot is. And again, don't worry if it's not perfect because this will change a lot. As you start writing the book, the plot will evolve and it will get better as you get more ideas, but this is a good starting place. You need to know what goal your character has in mind. What are they trying to accomplish and what are the obstacles keeping them from that? Because that is what your ultimate story is. I'm gonna jump off and write my blurb about my books. This should be about a half page long, and then as you write this, remember, you need to come up with 10 ideas that go into your notes and ideas section. So today is day 5, you should have 50 ideas by the end of the day, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow for day 6 of the 60-day novel writing challenge.